On the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last. Coming up on this episode...
I like to say I'm giving the trees another life that's going to last longer than their first life, but in the form of art.
Hi, we're Kelly
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for this edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. I'm Bob Phillips.
And I'm Kelly Phillips. If this is your first time joining us, we travel all over the country, finding people with a story to tell so we can tell it to you. And that includes everything from serious to funny, passion to pensive.
Yep, and this week, that story comes from a tiny town in northwest Arizona. Colorado City, Arizona has to be one of the most difficult towns to get to in the lower 48 states. Its location in the northwest corner of the state is accessible by only one road that connects it to the rest of Arizona, and approaching the town from the west requires drivers to go through both Nevada and Utah before arriving in Colorado City.
Our directions took us to a nondescript building in this town of fewer than 2,500 people, where we found 34-year-old Ianthus Barlow teaching his apprentice about the art of working with wood.
Because you want to clamp about every 6 inches most of the time. And that's just throw one here. Basically, these ones are squeezing from the back and making the panel go like that. And this one's going to counter it and bring it back this way. So yeah, I'll even throw them on the ends right here. We'll throw one across each end and then in between each brace. And then this is a board bender.
Ianthus is an interesting guy from the moment we meet him. He's a native of this town, where it is estimated that at least half of the citizens are descendants of Mormon leaders Joseph Smith or John Barlow, including Ianthus and his rather large family.
I grew up here in Colorado City. I left when I was 14, but my childhood was awesome. Out here, it was all about the outdoors, go outside. My mother had 18 children. I'm number 5. I make the joke I was the first middle child that got lost in the numbers. Right? So, my mother she was so busy doing stuff that it was, if she got on her nerves, she's like, go outside and play. So that's what we did. We had a scrap pile of bicycles. We would just take parts and build a bicycle out of nothing. Play in the creek with the neighbors. We had a little wash behind our house. You know, do stuff with your hands, not just be lazy, sit around and do nothing. So, I mean, my childhood was amazing.
But Ianthus' childhood didn't last that long. At the age of 14, he and hundreds of other boys and men were kicked out of the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints sect of the Mormon Church. Their parents were forbidden by then FLDS leader Warren Jeffs to have anything to do with their banished children, who would soon be given the name the Lost Boys. Many of them ended up living on the streets of nearby St. George, Utah, and other area towns. With only a 5th grade education, Ianthus made his way to Salt Lake City, where he did whatever he could to survive, working in construction or just about any job he could find.
And then, call it fate, destiny, or divine intervention, a man named Dan Fisher, who had started a nonprofit to address the issue of helping the Lost Boys, stepped in to save the day and lots of lives.
If it wasn't for him, I would not be where I am today. That's
How's
for dang
that?
sure.
What happened?
He runs a foundation called the Diversity Foundation, and he picks up kids like me that are young, coming out of this religion, really don't know about the real world and how it functions. And he takes you and he offers you a deal. You go to school, I'll give you a house, I'll give you some food, and I'll give you a car. So if it wasn't for him, I would have never went back to high school. I would have never gotten a high school diploma. I would have never went to college. The last grade I went to before that was 5th grade. I got kicked out of 5th grade for being obnoxious in class. I went back into school halfway through 10th grade. and graduated with a high school diploma and walked with my class.
And that brings us to the reason for our visit to hard-to-get-to Colorado City, Arizona. We had heard stories about an incredible woodworker in this town, a man who could breathe new life into dying trees, who could take the ordinary and somehow make it extraordinary, just by shaping it with his hands and heart.
And as it turns out, that man is Ianthus. It seems that after being rescued from the streets by a good Samaritan, Ianthus reached all the way back into his childhood to take advantage of some time he spent with his dad.
My dad took me to work quite a bit with him. He worked at a cabinet shop about 10 years ago. That's when I started IB Woodworks. I don't know, it just clicked. But back then I wasn't even thinking, hey, I'm gonna be a woodworker when I grow up. He was there, he was teaching me skills, how to use machines, design. It just soaked in the back of my head, and it didn't come out until 10 years later.
What do you think it was that caused it to click all of a sudden?
Honestly, I think it was the growth in my own life. Like when you're a kid, you're having so much fun, you're not really thinking about the future. And so when it really clicked, I was working a job in construction, installing heavy wood windows and doors up in Park City, Utah. It's snowing, I'm outside, and that's kind of when it was like, what am I doing in my life? What are we doing here? So that's when I built a little shop in my garage, and I just started hobbying, building charcuterie boards, little benches, and it sucked me in.
Today, Ianthus operates IB Woodworks from his shop in this town where he grew up. He has good memories about his early childhood, memories that he now knows set him on the road to do his life's work. And even though his later childhood years were far from pleasant, he's chosen to concentrate on the positive.
This whole town was built around that religion, which was great when I grew up. Everybody helped everybody. On Saturdays, we had Saturday work projects. All the men in the community would get together, we'd have a meeting, and we'd figure out who needs help doing what, and then we would break out into crews, and you would go and do something you've never done before in your life.
How great is that?
It was amazing. I've seen them build a house in 24 hours. I don't know how to do that. That's not something I say. It's, hey, I haven't done that before. Let me figure out. Give me 20 minutes on YouTube and I'm gonna do it. The stuff I build, I don't do what most other furniture companies do. With all the new products coming out, everything's a fiberboard with a little 16th veneer of pretty wood on top. I don't allow that in any of my builds. Everything is solid hardwood, trying to bring back the old school woodworking techniques, building heirloom furniture. That's what it's all about.
Why do you do that? Why are you going to all that trouble?
It sets me apart from everybody else. Everybody else is cutting corners and just trying to get a price to where they can get volume of sales. But for me, I would rather spend 3-6 months on one project and make it perfect and make that sucker last for 200 years than crank something out that's gonna break in 3 years. I would rather my name and my brand be the one that lasts generations than the one that ends up in the garbage in 3 years.
As we talked to Ianthus about his work, we sat on 2 wooden benches he had just finished moments before we arrived. They weren't just furniture, they were, purposeful pieces with their own story, pieces that would be part of someone's life for years to come.
Tell us about these benches in particular, where the wood came from.
This tree, I had a client from Kanab, Utah reach out, and they bought a 100-year-old house. They were gonna just remodel it, but they found out it had a bunch of mold, and so they ended up having to demolish the entire house. So since they're starting over from scratch, they're like, hey, let's add a bedroom or 2, and there just happened to be 2 big mature elm trees in the way. So they had a lumber mill come in and they chopped them down, milled them up, dried them, and then that's when they came and found me. It's like, we want a table this size made out of this log.
You're telling me the benches that we're sitting on right now, not too long ago, were trees in somebody's yard that they cut down?
Correct.
Ianthus Barlow has every reason to have failed in life, to have spent his time on earth just working a series of jobs with no pride and no satisfaction.
But that's not what lives inside this young man who was kicked out of his family just because he disagreed with local religious leaders. With help from those who cared, he has pulled himself up, and today he is not only succeeding, he thinks he knows the secret that he wants to pass on to others.
Well, it's actually something I tell a lot of people, especially younger ones. Find a passion. It could be anything in life. Find that one thing that just makes you get up before your alarm goes off, makes you stay up until midnight, working on it. Like, that's a passion. If you find something like that, and it can be anything, whether it's volunteering with your local community or starting a business and getting into a specific trade, it could be literally anything. But if you find something that gives you that feeling, I mean, everything changes. Your life is just amazing after that.
As always seems to be the case, our conversation with Ianthus Barlow went on far beyond what you just heard. And that's why we do this podcast version of our stories. There is a great deal more to this particular story because, unlike most of the tales we tell, this one has a dark side that's, well, difficult.
Now, keep in mind that one of our missions is to avoid controversy, and we'll do our best to keep that in mind here. It's not our intention to judge anyone. We only want to tell stories that make up the fabric of America. So let's pick up the conversation with Ianthus where we left off.
I've got to ask, you said you moved away when you were 14.
I did.
Where did you go and what made you come back?
I went up to Salt Lake, and honestly, I left just because I was a bored 14-year-old. I mean, the church was getting pretty restricted on the things you could do. So I vowed to just leave. And so I went to Salt Lake, got into construction, ended up down in Phoenix, helping my brother. I was unloading tires out of a semi-trailer, and then back to St. George. And then at that point, the original guy's from here, his name's Dan Fisher. He runs a foundation called the Diversity Foundation. He's like, come learn, come and do something with your life. Let's get you a degree, puts them in college, and really helps them out. Since it's a nonprofit foundation, he has a lot of people that really help out and donate schooling, laptops, just everything that you would need to help these guys actually get a foot on life and be able to move forward and actually have something and build something with their life.
How much do you think about that? About this was a life-changing thing for you.
It comes up every time anyone asks me how I got here, because it was a massive turning point in my life.
How old were you at that point?
I would have been 16, I think 16 years old.
Still a kid.
Yeah.
So he took me up to Salt Lake, and we, obviously being a 16-year-old, and I'm going to high school. I want to play sports, I want to play football, but I couldn't because I needed a parent signature, on everything. So he actually helped push the emancipation bill in Utah through, and I was one of the first kids in Utah to get emancipated so that I could sign for myself and play high school football.
What does he think about what you're doing now?
I think he'd be proud based off of where I was at when he saw me the first time and all the shenanigans he had to deal with me when I was that age to where I finally ended up. I think he'd be really proud.
How does it make you feel that somebody cared enough to change your life?
Definitely makes me feel good because I was headed down not a very good path at that age, to be out in the world and basically no parents. I mean, I had brothers that were around and looked after me and older friends and stuff, but I was literally a 14-year-old adult out there, no one telling me don't do that. I had to just do it and learn either from the consequence or whatever happened from my action. It was a lot.
And how does it feel now as you look at what you've accomplished because of the help you got?
It feels really good. I still have a lot to learn about life and a lot to grow from, but
Don't we all?
yeah.
That's never ending.
I mean, I feel really good about it. Like I said, if it wasn't for Dan and the foundation, I'd probably be in jail, to be honest with you.
Are your parents here?
They're in Cedar City.
Do you see them anymore? Do they know what you're doing?
They're still a part of the shenanigans, so we don't talk often.
That's got to be
And
hard.
what about your siblings?
I have 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers and a younger sister that have all left the church. And outside of that, all the rest, they're still in there.
So that's really your core group since you chose to go down a different path.
Yeah, and we all kind of well, my oldest brother, Ed, and then Jason just under him, and then we all left about the same time, right around that 2004 time. And then, I mean, it was years and years and years. I mean, the next one that left was probably 6 years ago. And then another one about 3 years ago. So it took a long time for anyone else to come out, but now we're really tight. When you go that long without family, like once they start coming around, you keep them around.
Family's important, isn't it?
It definitely is. Going without them for so long makes you really cherish like now that we're back around. I mean, we all live right around the same area, and we hang out all the time, and it's made it that much better.
So is it just you that works here, or do you have a staff?
It's mainly just me. I'll bring people in to help out when I get big jobs. Two of my brothers are entrepreneurs as well. One of them has a shop 2 blocks down the street. So whenever I need a hand, I can call him. He'll jump over and help me out. And it's the same for him. He calls me all the time. I jump over there and help him out. It's teamwork. But then when I get a big commercial job, I'll usually bring on one guy and just push that through. But for the most part, I'm everything. I do my marketing, I do the bids, I do the designs, I build the product, I deliver the product, I do my own QuickBooks. I do everything.
And when do you sleep?
What sleep? No, we sneak them in
overrated.
there. We sneak them in there every now and again. And I just feel like this is the way society is now with the throwaway. It's like I feel like if I did start letting go of a little bit of that control, it would just make a right turn and go right into what everybody else is doing.
You have found your happy place in life, haven't you? Gonna stay in it?
Yeah.
At a mere 34.
Wow.
I've been doing it for 7 years already, professionally.
One other thing, you mentioned you fell down a lot. You made mistakes. There are a lot of people, they fall down and they won't get back up. What do you tell those people?
It kind of comes back to the passion thing. I've helped a lot of friends that have fallen off the bandwagon, try and help pick them up, but then they just fall back down. They don't want to help themselves. Over the years, I've finally just learned, like, I'll always give someone a first chance. Depending on if you're really nasty, do me over, and I'll give you a second chance. But really, you have to give yourself a chance. Like, you have to be ready. But it comes down to that passion thing. I've told this to so many of my friends. They just kept falling back into the cycle. It's like when you get that itch and that thing to go and use again, if you had the passion to just dive into, that feeling would go away. Like, at least it might only be for that moment, but you just found a release to make that feeling go away.
This becomes your drug and your addiction.
Yep.
Right here, what you're doing, as opposed to something that's going to take you down the wrong path.
Exactly. Which, again, it could be anything. Just find something that gives you that feeling, and you will want to do it more than drugs.
You wake up every morning itching to get in here and do this, don't you?
I do. Especially when we get to this stage of a project. I mean, I assembled these this morning, and just watching them come together is just, oh my goodness. All that hard work and just building all the little parts and doing all the inserts. It's just all these little pieces, then you finally get to assemble it all and see what it looks like.
How many hours go into one of your pieces?
I mean, it varies so much, but I mean, we've got a 7'6" table and then 2 7-foot benches, and I welded up the steel frames that are underneath them, all that. So all in, we're 200 hours, give or take.
In this set.
In this one set.
I'm intrigued by your name.
That is something everybody's intrigued in.
Where does that come from?
It's a family name. So I was named after my great-great-uncle, Ianthus Barlow, John White Barlow's brother. So it's just a family name, and I think there's like 6 Ianthus Barlows here in this town.
6 people named Ianthus in this town, and you're the first Ianthus I've met in my long life. What kind of names do the other 17 siblings have? Anything like that?
No. Jason, Ed, Marion, Wendell.
You got kind of lucky, you know that.
I mean, it's a very artistic name.
Yes, it is. It makes you sound like an old world artist.
It sounds really nice, and Ianthus is actually a word in Greek, and it means the color violet, which I'm not like too stoked about. I wish it was, I wish it was a little more you know, maybe manly or
Maybe he wanted it
something. But
to be, granite or something.
Or Greek artist.
yeah, something a little cooler. But I'm purple.
Hey, just be happy with the original name.
Do you consider yourself an artist?
I'm still trying to get used to the term, but almost everybody that I go and build for, I think that's what they say about me. It's like, you're an artist, and I'm like, I build furniture. It is beautiful to look at, so I'm still warming up to the name, but yeah, I think I am.
And Ianthus has truly found his passion. He said that if he didn't have bills to pay, he would literally do this for free. But he does have bills to pay, and what he is doing is heirloom furniture that will long outlive him and probably even you. And we want to thank our sponsors, Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings, for allowing us to travel all over and be able to tell such fascinating stories. Again, thanks for listening this week. On the Road with Kelly and Bob, you can listen wherever you get your podcast or download that free Audacy app and listen anytime, anywhere.